we're back after the false start. For some reason, my microphone was not working, and it was kind of annoying. So, not quite sure what was going on there. Anywho, so as I was saying when I was talking to myself, that one of the things I've noticed over the last couple weeks as I wanted to get into more Pioneer content, I've kind of got away from what the core of the channel has been, which is Red Aggro, primarily Burn in Modern, and stretching that to Pioneer, as well as Is It Phoenix in the Modern format, and has done reasonably well in the Pioneer format. So we're getting back to our core of red-based decks. We'll still be doing other decks as things go along, especially people's donation deck lists. I have a green-black rock deck for Pioneer that someone wants to see played, as well as currently a blue-white control list, although Space Marine does change his mind like literally every 12 hours. So when he finally decides what deck he actually wants to see played, we'll finally get down to business and play, because he sent me like 6 lists in the last 4 days. Sorry, Space Marine. You do change your mind a lot on decks, my man. So, this morning we're playing some Atarka Red, which is a variant on Sly or Mono Red Aggro. It's not a burn-based deck per se. It does have some burn spells in it, but it was based on a deck during one of the Cons of Tarkir block standards. Was using things like Hordling Outburst and Dragon Fodder, as well as things like Zergo and some other cards to kind of trigger a lot of damage. It was using things like Tarkus Command to on a go wide board, as well as things like Goblin Rabble Master and Stoke the Flames in order to use all those Convoke tokens and such to inflict a tremendous amount of damage. It's one of the few times in the history of playing Magic that I've seen a friend of mine who is primarily a control and mid-range player playing a ton of aggro. He really loved the deck because it did a lot of winning. But basically what this deck's trying to do is flood the board with a bunch of cheap 1-drops, things like Monastery Swiftspear, Soulscar Mage, Bomat Courier, Zergo Bellstriker, getting down early turn 1, and then using things like Runaway Steamkin, Burning Tree Emissary to get a lot of power on the board, and then like turn 3 or turn 4, double spell with Reckless Bushwhacker, or connect with a lot of damage with the Tarkus commands and a bunch of creatures in play, using things like Wild Slash and Lightning Strike to clear out blockers or to finish off the last points of damage. And then importantly, you also have things like Bomat Courier and Smuggler's Copter to get card advantage, card selection, etc. Sideboard, Eidolon is for any type of deck that's using either a lot of spells, so things like Kethis combo or anything like that. It's not as effective in this version of the deck, primarily because of you're playing a lot of spells yourself, so you're dealing yourself a lot of damage. So it is a nice sideboard card to hedge against these spell-based decks. Searing Blood when you're playing against a bunch of small creatures. Fry when you're playing against a bunch of planeswalkers or things like Siege Rhino and such. Roast, a lot of the same thing. Allows you to kill bigger creatures, get them out of the way. Then Smash to Smithereens when you're playing against any style of artifact-based deck, so Hardened Scales and such. With that, go ahead and get into the league. I'm not doing the challenge. I would like to do a league. Thank you. Last league out didn't have so much luck when we played the Bant field list, which it seemed like it had some reasonable things going on for it, but just not very good against particular combo decks and such. So, of course, some of those combo decks were banned, with Copycat and Devotion getting banned, so this hand is kind of absurd considering the sheer amount of lands in it, so we have to mulligan, unfortunately. This hand's a little bit better. Yeah, the question is, which one am I supposed to lead off on? I guess Bomat Courier. think our objective is just to get as aggressive as possible. Be funny if our opponent's turn 2 play is like Thought Erasure here. Collective Brutality would be pretty rough, and that's what it looks like this might be. Yep. Opponent gets nothing. Unfortunately, we lose the 2 cards underneath the Courier. Okay, fair enough. Possible I should have deployed the Burning Trees last turn either way, just to get more on the board. See if our opponent has a sweeper here. Oh, just a bolus. Just need to push as much damage as possible. I honestly think our opponent should be trying to block the Smuggler's Copter, but alright, so what could our opponent have here that we care about that wouldn't make any attack lethal? Do this, swing with 3. So our opponent has to have a removal spell here or they're just dead. Wild Slash finishes them off. Alright, on to sideboarding. Alright, so against Bolus we're probably interested in Fry, as well as against Jace. Eidolon could be pretty reasonable in spots here. Our opponents, so probably want Eidolon in this matchup. On the draw, we probably want to cut Bomat. So Bomat or Soulscar here? Maybe some of the Wild Slashes. There's a whole bunch of different things we could cut here. Like Wild Slashes and Lightning Strikes aren't particularly effective here. Some number of the 1-drops might be able to go. I think on the draw it might be just the Wild Slashes, question mark, or the Lightning Strikes. Just for curve purposes here. maybe trim a couple Steamkins, because they're not particularly good against a opponent that might have sweepers, especially sideboard. So if I could guarantee us drawing a land, but I think this hand's a mulligan. This hand's better-ish. Could lead on one of our haste threats, but there's a decent chance that whatever we played here is going to get collective brutality'd, so... Alright. Interesting to see what our opponent's got here. Double Fatal Push obviously would be a little bit rough. Of course that's what they have. Part of the reason we left in Wild Slash over Lightning Strike, besides curve purposes, was the fact that it does kill Jace quite nicely, and opponent is going to leave Jace in. Be really kind of rough if we got hit by a Nicol Bolas this turn. What is it with the sheer amount of Grixis decks in the format here? Could play Atarka's command here, but actually command probably would have been better here, especially given the fact that our opponent has a Kulagon's command at the ready. Yep. Let's deal with that Jace. Opponent has one card in hand. You're gonna tell me it's another Kulagon's command. Alright, on to the next game. Alright, so with the sheer amount of Kulagon's commands, it's possible I'm just supposed to get these Smuggler's Copters out of there. Really don't want my opponent getting too many valuable 2-for-1s there. Bring in a couple copies of Lightning Strike. So while Smuggler's Copter is pretty good in these kind of grindy matchups, it's not great against opponent with that many Kolaghan's commands. Once again, this is one of those hands that if we hit a second land drop would be pretty insane. If we miss or hit a game trail, we'd be in a lot of trouble. So I think it's a mulligan. This hand's a little bit more defensible. Probably pitch, what, Steamkin here? Or maybe the command, since we don't have green mana. Alright. I'm gonna say land would be nice here. Get the Steamkin out, that way we can trigger a bunch of things off of the Swiss Spears next turn. Wonder if we'll get Brutality here. Nope. Sure, Fatal Push, that's fine. Annoying, but fine. So I'm going to leave the Mountain in my hand so I can trigger... In case they have a K command here, I can just discard it and not really lose anything relevant. Looks like that's exactly what they have. Nope, just Anger of the Gods. Okay. Pass turn. Probably drawing too many lands here, and our opponent does have a bunch of, Yep. So this is one of the downsides of the Atarka red builds versus the, more burn-based builds, is the fact that our opponent with a ton of rather quick, easy removal, going to be problematic to try to beat. Our opponent gets to Anger of the Gods next turn, so I think this game's over, unfortunately. Though, I do find it interesting the last couple leagues that we've played that we've seen... Well, actually, the Bantfield deck I didn't see any Grixis, but... the... Is it Phoenix League, we saw like 2 Grixis decks, and now we see one first thing out with the Atarka Red, so I found that interesting. Mulligan, 4-lander, just not keepable. This hand's a lot better. The question becomes, what card gets put back? So... I think we want to keep the Wild Slash just as a mana filler or curve filler. The rest of the hand's a bunch of 2-drops, so I think it's either Atarka's Command or Lightning Strike here. I think for now I'm just going to put the Lightning Strike back. Not going to hold up Lightning Slash or Wild Slash. It's not really worth paying the 2 life to do so right now. Of course, I say that, and our opponent's going to have like a Mana Dork or something on one. Nope, Siren Storm Tamer. Okay. Pass turn. Decent chance our opponent could have something like Merfolk Trickster in their deck. But I don't think there's any reason to play around that right now, especially given how tight they are on mana. Get that Trickster out of the way. We can still attack with the Burning Tree. So historically, when they were both in the same format, red decks did struggle with mono blue, specifically because of things like Master of Waves. So it'll be interesting to see if the same holds true in this style of matchup. Sure. Well, it's just kind of buying themselves a little bit of time, but not really, per se. Would like to draw lands here. I think both decks would like to draw lands. Sure. Boost that up to a 3/4. See if my opponent even realizes they're about to sort of get blown out here. Question is, what do I pitch here myself? Definitely want the Swift Spear. It's one of these two, I think. I think Steamkin's going to be the least impactful in a mana tight kind of game. chance to loot. So and then next turn, if we had hit a land drop, we could potentially threaten lethal. I think our deck operates a little bit better on mana screw than theirs does. And our opponent agrees. So Fry is going to be pretty good. Searing Blood's going to be pretty good. I don't know that we want Eidolon here. Roast doesn't kill a lot of their stuff because they have a bunch of flyers. So I think on the draw I'm supposed to go down the Bowmat Couriers. And one other cut, huh? Maybe one of the Steamkin here. Try it like that. Alright, sounds pretty reasonable. Lead on Soulscar Mage. Let's go to combat. If our opponent wants to waste their entire turn on playing a Merfolk Trickster, they can. See if our opponent has a Quench or something. Play out Steamkin. Another Trickster or something. Yep. Tempest Shin, sure. Love to draw a land here. Either way, just punch through a bunch of damage. Hopefully they don't have Master of Waves here, that'd be unfortunate. Nope, just Harbinger, bounce the... Yep. We're supposed to lead back a blocker this turn. Once again, mana choking is a problem this turn. Alright, opponent now has to figure out how to get around a Smuggler's Copter. That might buy us a little bit of time to redeploy our board. Not sure what our opponent's thinking here. And you really don't want to give me a free loot, do you? Especially since I get to kill one of your... So what do I ditch here is the question mark. Command can be a blowout trick. I think it's just Steamkin here. Nothing, so it must have been a land. Land or some card that I'm not thinking about. I think if it was Brazen Borrow or something, they would have played something else instead. Activate Mutavault, sure. Seems like any attack they make is extremely poor. Don't know that Shocking was the correct play there, but this will make it extremely difficult for our opponent to attack. I really hope they tap out for Master of Waves this turn. That would be delightful. Because then we could just kill them in the air. Fortunately, that does make the going for lethal play not possible this turn because they still have that stupid Storm Tamer in play. We had lethal because 2 Smuggler's Copters getting +1/+1s, 8 damage, and then Atarka's command itself's 11, so they would have been dead if we'd been able to kill the Storm Tamer there. Alright, opponent wasn't just dead, but they were in a lot of trouble, obviously. Anyways, I'll be back in 1 second. Alright, we're back. So lost to Grixis and beat Blue Devotion. Interesting. On to round 3 here. These lands, man. If we had a mountain instead of one of these game trails, I think I could easily keep this hand, but as is, this hand's a mulligan. This hand's a lot better. Question is, what are we putting back? Probably the Steamkin at that point. Lead on the Courier here to get an extra card under it. Sure. My Courier opt. I think I'm just supposed to take advantage of the damage here. Not really sure what our opponent's up to right now. Okay. Sure. Don't even know if we're supposed to bother playing Steamkin there. It's possible I'm just supposed to be maximizing my damage. Attack. I'm not going to push damage right now. Force my opponent to react at the moment, because Wild Slash could potentially save them from a 2 damage spell. So this is Dynavolt Tower. Chandra, sure. So 2 put our opponent to 8. That would put our opponent to... If I draw a land, playing the Wild Slash is counterproductive, because it would be an extra point of damage, because that would be lethal then, because then this is 4 damage, 3 damage, plus the 3 power on board. If I miss on a land drop, not playing the Wild Slash is annoying here. So what's more likely to happen? An untapped land source or some other spell I wish I'd be able to play? It's actually an interesting question. Guess I'm going to go for the hope I draw a land play. Does Burning Tree change the course of things? I think I'm supposed to... Am I supposed to ignore the Chandra here? I'm supposed to ignore Chandra here. Six mana? Torrential Gear Hulk with a braid, so you're dead. Alright, on the sideboarding here. So... Interesting subset of cards. Alright, so... Dynavolt Tower. No data found. Fortunately, I happened to see a Dynavolt Tower list yesterday on Mr. Anderson's Twitter account. So... Does look like our opponent's playing something similar to that. Doesn't look like a ton in the sideboard for the matchup. I guess Ether Gust could be... How exactly is Ether Gust worded? Not that we have a lot of play against it. I keep spelling Ether Guest instead of Ether Gust. It's red or green. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Alright. So... Smash could be fine in small spots. Because they have Tower and Gear Hulk potentially, as well as Whirler Virtuoso tokens possibly out of the board. I think this is the style of matchup we probably want Eidolon in. Fry doesn't kill Gear Hulk, so I don't know that's necessarily worth it here. It's possible I just want all my smashes, honestly. Wild Slashes and Lightning Strikes feel kinda counterproductive. Board the strikes out for the smashes. Steamkins could actually be pretty brutal for them at 4 toughness. So maybe we're supposed to cut a couple of those and a couple couriers. Sand's fine, a little bit slow, but fine. Lead on game trail in the Bomat Courier. Next turn we have to decide if we want to play Eidolon or Burning Tree into Copter. Our opponent really miss on land drops. Oof. Mistimed on the killing of our creature. Sure. This is where Copter's power gets to shine a little bit. Definitely understand why our opponent kept the hand they kept. Doing this to crew the Copter this turn. Feels like our opponent's just no way another Zergo here. Just pressure our opponent as much as possible. And feels like a scoop incoming. Yep. Alright, opponent stumbled and we got there in game number 2. Alright, so 2-1. We beat a control deck, lost to a control deck. Beat Mono Blue Devotion. Seems like a good start so far. Wish our opponent good luck. So this hand once again has the game trail problem, no second land. It's a mulligan. So the problem with game trail is like this was a mountain or a stomping ground in this hand. We could easily go 1-drop into 1-drop and be fine. If we hit an untapped land next turn, we're good, but there's 7 lands in our deck that would come into play tapped. Because any other game trail. Actually, how many game trails and stuff is there in this list? So we had 1 Rootbound Crag and 4 game trails that would come into play tapped. So we'd have 17 lands to draw, but only 13 of them would come into play on tap. 12. So I don't think we can risk that, unfortunately. We get rid of Wild Slash here. Alright, some type of Bant. Field of the Decklist. Fortunately, our opponent gets a free block here. Don't want to attack with the 2/1 here into the 1/1. Is this just like a mono green Field of the Dead deck? Feels like it might be. Don't think we're going to find a way to punch through all these wonderful zombos, so... Alright. Kinda hard to beat that kind of a draw. So what is even good here? Something like Cosmotronic Wave, or I think there's some type of falter effect in the format, but obviously that's not in this kind of a build. Guess we put in the Searing Bloods because they answer the zombies pretty reasonably. Certain degree, the Wild Slashes are a bit of nonsense, and maybe one copy of Steam can try it like that. Keeps a 7-card hand. I think we're supposed to get rid of Atarka's command here. Sand is risky, but we're already on 6, so they have Arbor, or doesn't look like they have quite the start enough to punish us here, but that's certainly a card that could punish us. Special Contortion. And they have the Elvish Rejuvenator thing. Yep. Castle Garenbrig. Interesting. Have no choice but to play into the Blast Zone. So they also have Eldrazi at their top end on top of everything else. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. Green Field Ramp. Didn't even know this was a thing. Interesting deck. Alright. We can't win from here, so unfortunately we are 2-2 on to match number 5, but I need to take a really short restroom break. I will be right back. Alright, we're back for the fifth and final match in this league. So, deck we were looking at facing was something along these lines. Boreal Glazer, Rejuvenator, they play Ulamog and Emrakul, a bunch of different things. They also play Hour of Promise, Nessus Pilgrimage, Once Upon a Time. Different interesting lands to get there. Garen Briggs helped to cast the Ulamog and Emrakul. Sanctum allows them to go get their big dumb stuff. And Ugin obviously is kind of a catch-all in this format, so interesting things, but that's the deck we were facing off against. Wish our opponent good luck. Unfortunately, we're on the draw here. This hand's pretty good, even for being on the draw. Just keep. Let's again lead off on sure. Let's go search for his Kanta. Get the Smuggler's Copter down while we can. So the one problem for blue-white control in this spot is they don't have a ton of good spot removal. Could have something like Last Breath or Seal Away, or they could just simply have a counterspell like Absorb. So then it becomes, do we play into counterspells or do we play into playing around sweepers as much as possible? Okay, Teferi Time Rattler could be mildly annoying here. Bounce the Copter. I'm just ticking up. Alright. So how much do I play into sweepers this turn, and how much do I play into just killing the Teferi? I don't think I can present lethal this turn, can I? So 1, so 2, 5. Trigger that, trigger that. The question becomes, like, how much do I literally want to play around Supreme Verdict here? If I go all in, I could deal 2 damage there, 3 damage there, or 3 there, 2 there. Trigger that. So So 4 at them, 5 to kill Teferi. Feels like a waste of a lot of damage, but I think it's fine. May as well loot, see what we can hit. Zergo's an interesting one. Can I get rid of Wild Slash at that point then? That was actually a tough turn to decide exactly how much damage I wanted to push versus how much to leave back in the face of a Supreme Verdict. So, yeah, it feels like a Supreme Verdict's incoming. Which is fine-ish. These game trails, man. Keep... It's possible I should have used the Zergo. Because, like, our opponent would be dead here, but they would have been able to Supreme Verdict during our combat step, so that wouldn't have been good. So I think it was necessary to kill the stupid Teferi, even though it wasted 5 damage, and they would be at 1, and I looted away a Wild Slash. So, lots to think about here. A little bit different than Burn, where, you know, just kind of whatever. Yep, there's a Teferi. Use this because this presents lethal. This forces them to use a counterspell if they have it. No reason to use Atarka's command yet. This could potentially counter any type of last breath shenanigans, so... all coming at you, friend. Okay. Creatures you control. Good game. Play slow. Alright, Eidolon, pretty decent in this matchup. Though they admittedly do have a lot of clunkier stuff. Fry's pretty decent here. Cards I'm not interested in. Steamkins just play another Verdict's too darn much. And beyond that, I think I'm just interested in as much haste and as much pressure as possible. The Fries might even be a little overboard. I think the Wild Slashes are kind of the next cut up. Shock is not necessarily a card you're looking for terribly much in this matchup. This hand is close. I mean, we have a Bomat Courier. Can I risk this hand on the draw? I think so. I think it's got enough upside that I want to play this hand. Could play out Zergo here, but I think getting the Bomat down and drawing us cards is good. Sure, I didn't want to draw any lands anyway. I think we have to cast Zergo here just to get more pressure on the board. Okay, there's a search for Iskanta. I'm gonna laugh if it was like all lands underneath this Bomat Courier. Well, it doesn't apparently need lands here. Feels like our opponent has a Supreme Verdict but doesn't want to cast it right now. Or I guess they could possibly have Settle the Wreckage. Okay, Blessed Alliance, sure. play out Smuggler's Copter here. All I can think of is, since my opponent put no worries, is Hakuna Matata for the rest of your day. Yeah, I know. Gotta reach Sanitarium. Our opponent has a counterspell here. Obviously, we could be in some trouble. Looks like they don't. Play another Burning Tree. Definitely want to kill this stupid Teferi this turn. Could have used Lightning Strike to do that, potentially. I think I'm going to swing both at Tef here. 1 damage isn't going to matter. 3 damage might, but... So... you just put that... oh, never mind. It went under the Bomat Courier. I'm like, what's going on here? It went under the Bomat Courier. Gotcha. Now we're probably going to get verdicted this turn. Not if there's enough stuff in play for them to justify it. Tension Sphere. Okay. Yep, there's the Ether Gust we suspected our one opponent was going to bring in the blue-red shell. Now our opponent gets to flip their Search for Azcanta and probably take over the game from here. Alright. Yeah. Alright, so opponent gets to flip their search for his Kanta. I think we're going to get buried here pretty quickly. Yep, opponent rightly bounces our Bomat Courier. We're just too far behind here. Alright, still don't think we change how we sideboard here. This hand's decent, even better if we draw a second land. Pretty famous last words, right? Opponent could potentially have a Spell Pierce here. So even if we had the really need to draw a land this coming turn would be great. Untap land specifically. Ironically, I'm pretty sure Azorius Charm would be more backbreaking. Azorius Charm on Bomat Courier. Probably walking face first into a Spell Pierce here. Yep, okay. Pretty sick bluff, though. Just another opt. Probably bounce the smuggler's copter. Yeah. I hate firing my best shot here, but they're going to get us with verdict at some point anyway. And I have to get that to ferry off the board, so... Once again, it's possible I should be deploying Smuggler's Copter, but Eidolon does crimp a lot of what they can do. Feels like activating Field of Ruin. Oh, just a Tension Sphere? Sure. Zorius Charm does technically deny us a draw step. Very, 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 very close game 3. Our entire turn to kill Teferi seems pretty loose, but... Okay, they pitch a land, big shocker. Of course, they draw a big Tef after we fry a little Tef. possible I should be ignoring their Planeswalker, but... Feels like we're about the point where we can't win anymore, unfortunately. Kind of awkward because we really want the 4th land to be able to trigger those both next turn, but... Mm-hmm. Alright, well... Basically, that league came down to... that last game keeping a, no lander or 1 lander on the play there. Not panning out, unfortunately. So, I think my big takeaway from this league is I'm not really sure that the green splash with the mana as it is constituted in this particular build is worth it. I think Game Trail specifically gets really awkward if it's not in your opening hand. I think the blue-white matchup was definitely winnable if I had maybe mulliganed one of those 2 hands that we got stuck on lands a little bit more. I think we could have potentially taken advantage of their early stumbling that their deck is prone to with their not the greatest removal in the ability. Beyond that, I mean, there are certain things you could do like falter effects for the Field of the Dead deck, etc. But I think this build is pretty clean, but I'm not sure that the green splash just for Atarka's command is worth it. I think there were some spots where we possibly could have considered something like Cinder Vines or D-Rev out of the sideboard if you're going to try to make the green splash work, as opposed to Smash to Smithereens. So I think the question is it worth going further in on the green splash and playing something like Mana Confluence, or is it just better to play the more consistent straight mono red? Because I don't think this deck, as it's specifically constituted, is necessarily worth the green splash. That's just kind of my thoughts and wrap up on this list. Unfortunately, another 2-3 result. Just want to thank everybody for hanging out this morning. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll definitely be back hopefully later today with some more content. This has been John for MTG Nexus. Hope to catch everybody a little bit later.